Hey, it's Joe. Welcome to the new video here. This is a question from Rick Coleman in Fort Worth, Texas. Rick says, "Dear Joe, I heard you say that you don't do due diligence before you make an offer on an investment property. That sounds dangerous to me. Can you tell me why?" Now, I think there's a headline that he was referring to in one of my marketing pieces that says how to make no-risk offers on houses with 5 minutes of work rather than 5 hours of due diligence. And I call this process, and actually it's throughout my entire business, in every different thing that I do, I'm always looking for ways to do things quicker with less risk. And by reducing that risk, I call that whole process the safety net method. It's the way you do it, the way you talk to people, the way you fill out the contracts, and what you're looking for. Now, the way most investment teachers show you to go out and make an offer is they first have you try to find a property. Let's say you go find an abandoned property. You're driving down the street, the grass is growing high, so you say, you know, that might be a deal. So let me check it out. So you pull it up in the county records. You find out what the status is of it, who owns the property. You contact that person. But you also, once you contact that person, say, you know, I might be interested in buying your property. They say, well, if you want to go look at it, you know, here's how you get inside. You go look at the property. You do a full-blown inspection on it. You try to figure out what's wrong with it. You maybe get some contractors to come out there and give you ideas of what it's going to cost to, you know, fix the roof and do, you know, replace the carpet and whatever else needs to be done to that property. You check the title to make sure that it's got clear title, and you look at the mortgage and make sure that they're making their payments on time, and you know, then you go out, and after that, after doing all that work, which maybe takes you 2, 3, 4 hours worth of your time, you pull comps to see what the value is because you want to know what kind of offer you need to make. And by comps, I'm talking about comparable sales of other properties in the area. And you want to know what the value is. So you make an offer that you think that you can make money on, that you think is going to make sense to put your money into and use your credit to buy that property. And then you make an offer. And then the seller says to you, oh no, I want, you know, X amount of dollars instead. They don't want to discount it nearly as much as what you think you're going to need to make it happen. So all that work, all that effort that you've put into, it just goes out the window. You've lost all that time. My philosophy is don't spend the time. Instead, give yourself contingencies to get out of a deal if it doesn't make sense or if these ugly things start to rear their head. Let's find out, you know, later on you find out that there's, you know, a hole in the kitchen floor and you know, you're going to fall through it. You know, I make offers on properties without ever seeing them, without ever going by them, without ever checking on the title, without ever, you know, looking at the loan situation, without ever doing comps. We can make offers doing it that way without spending all that time because we put contingencies in our offers that allow us to back out of the deal if the deal doesn't work. Now, we ask questions, like we want to know from the seller about these situations. We ask those questions, and they usually tell us. But if it turns out that what they're telling us is not accurate, then we can back out of the transaction without any loss and with much less loss of time. And one of the things that we find when we're doing it remotely, if let's say I've never been in a property and the guy says, it's in pretty good condition, you know, I do want to sell it, you know, there's not really any big problems with it. So it's great. We send him out a sign. We send him out a lockbox. He puts the sign in the yard for us. He puts the lockbox on the front door. We start doing our advertising campaign to get buyers into the property, and our buyers start going in, and our buyers are telling us, you know, this place smells like there's like 300 dogs that live here. It's horrible. It smells awful. Or, you know, that roof must be 40 years old. It's about to fall off the house. So we learn from our buyers the condition of the property if the seller lies to us, which, by the way, they don't lie to us that often because we ask them. You know, a lot of times they'll tell us, well, I've got one plug in the, you know, third bedroom that's got reverse polarity on it, you know. They'll get really detailed. I don't really want to hear that, you know. So I just want to know if it's got any major issues that we've got to deal with. So anyway, we find out from the buyers what the problems are. We ask the seller then, you know, we found out that there's a hole in the roof. Are you going to fix that? Oh yeah, we'll take care of that. Okay, as soon as you get that taken care of, we'll have a better chance of getting it sold. Or we can lower the price. We can do it either way. You don't have to do the work. We can just lower the price. Which one makes the most sense for you? And if they say, no, I'm not going to do it, and I'm not going to lower my price, and you know, you're either going to sell that property or you're not, well, we don't have to sell that property because we've got a contingency that lets us out of that deal. So if the buyers aren't interested in buying it, we don't need to sell it. Now, also, if they've given us a price that's too high and everybody comes in and says, no, I've found another property instead. This is a little bit too high for what I want. I'm looking at other things instead. If we keep hearing that over and over again, that we've got a price issue and nobody's buying the property, and a month goes by using the marketing that I teach, and that property is not sold, there's a reason, and there's only one reason that it hasn't sold, and that's the price. And I'm talking, if you're working with rent-to-buy properties, the price has to do with the monthly payment rather than the actual purchase price of the property. People are much more sensitive to the monthly payment than they are to the full purchase price of the property, unless they're paying cash for the property or they're getting a new loan. So this is the way to do it without ever looking at the property, without ever having to go out there. I see this happen with my students all the time. We do it all the time. I don't like to go look at properties anymore. You know, when I first started this business, it was a lot more fun to go out and look at houses, but I've seen every possible configuration of house out there, and frankly, I'm not that interested in spending an hour, you know, driving, you know, for 20 minutes, looking at it for 20 minutes, coming back for 20 minutes, and buying a property. It also makes it possible for us to do it remotely. So I can sell properties in multiple states. We can put ads in the paper, which we don't usually do because they cost money. We'd much rather use the online sources that are free, and we still use those ugly signs. They're still one of the biggest bangs for the buck that you can get out there if you do it right, and if you do it the way I teach. So yes, it is possible to do this without any due diligence, to make these offers and be safe doing it. When you put these contracts together, make sure you have a contract that is not going to damage you, and make sure you learn to talk to your sellers and your buyers in a way that sets their expectations properly, so they won't be surprised or angry at you because you told them one thing and something else happened. Setting expectations is very important in this process, and it'll keep you from a lot of pain if you do it right. So learn the process to do it right. All right, thanks.